can you beat the Elite Four from every single Pokemon generation with only Scyther? Well, that is the challenge I put myself up for today. Now, I had to make a few specific choices here to make this doable, as in certain Pokemon games, it's actually impossible. For example, you cannot use Scyther and actually defeat the Elite Four in Pokemon Red and Blue, so you have to go for Yellow, and the reason is because of Agatha, because she uses specifically Ghost types, and the only way to defeat those is if you have a move like, for example, Wing Attack, which Scyther only gets in Pokemon Yellow. So keep that in mind, but I'm bringing all this up for one particular reason, which is this challenge was nuts. So sit back, relax, put this on in the background, and let's get started. So, to be honest, first up we've had Lorelei, and she was pretty easy, because all you really need to do with Scyther is Swords Dance, Wing Attack, Swords Dance, Wing Attack, and that's really what you have to do throughout the first generation with all the Elite Four. It's really not much more than that, and Wing Attack is probably one of the most useful, moves you have on Scyther to actually use, because if not for Wing Attack, I'm telling you, Scyther would be pointless. And I think if you actually go back and look at specifically Scyther in Red and Blue, Scyther was pretty bad. Scyther was surprisingly bad as a Pokemon, whereas it's way more useful nowadays. Next was Bruno, and honestly, this was a pretty quick fight. Again, Swords Dancing mostly through his team, and then Wing Attacking majority of them. Also, Slash comes in really handy on this Pokemon, Scyther. I mean, I ended up stopping using this move later on, but honestly, Bruno ended up being pretty useful to use Slash against, as most of his Pokemon would take down. Then next we had Agatha, and wow, okay, so initially this was going to be impossible, but thanks to, again, Pokemon Yellow, we do end up having Wing Attack, and it ends up actually being a pretty difficult battle, to be honest. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, but once we got a few of those, Swords Dances up, then it was pretty much smooth sailing from there, but for majority of the start, it was kind of rough. Now, oddly enough, the one I thought was going to be the most difficult, that being Lance, ended up actually being one of the easiest. Now, I did make a few minor mistakes when battling him, but for the majority of the part, it was kind of easy. Just a Swords Dance and then Wing Attack through all his Dragonairs, as well as his Aerodactyl, which was a little bit annoying because, well, we missed that, that first attack didn't fully destroy it, and Dragonite was pretty smooth sailing. For majority, he was pretty easy. Now, at this point, all we got on our hands is essentially Trainer Blue as the champion. He starts off with a Sand Slash. Here we get a little bit stuck against it, but other than that, we mostly get through it as well pretty easily. And then again, it's pretty straightforward. Wing Attack through majority of his team, and yeah, it's pretty much victory for us at this point. There's really not much else we had to do. We just kept defeating him and easily getting through his team because Wing Attack was enough. And that's the thing, Scyther was useful in this regard, but it gets a little bit rougher in the future generations. And that's exactly what we had with Gen 2, right? We were gonna have a little bit more of a struggle in the battles, but hey, we did our best anyways, kicking off our first battle against Will, and yeah, this one was interesting to say the least. Oh, here's the thing, right? Will wasn't that big of a deal, but I will say though, I did end up struggling against the champion in this one. So first up, of course, is Will. Again here, not that big of a deal. You mostly just Wing Attack, and that's the thing with, honestly, with Scyther. If he didn't have the Wing Attack, would be so useless to use, but in this regard, it wasn't that difficult. Exeggutor is easily taken down as well, and Will is gone. Koga is next though, and here I was a little bit worried, specifically because, well, he's running bug types as well, and I was kind of worried maybe something would pop up that was going to make my life really hard, because honestly with the later generations where I did have struggles, it was mostly against stuff like rock types, right? And that sort of things. That's what kind of made my life really difficult in the future matches, but in these ones it was pretty straightforward because there was really nothing there besides maybe if a potential fire type was to show up to really make it hard for me. So again, Koga was easy, and then Bruno was pretty much Bruno from the previous generation, Gen 1, same thing, just minor changes in his team, and it's Bruno. He's one of the weakest, straight up weakest Elite Four out there. I was a little bit worried again about his Onyx, having some sort of rock type move potentially that could destroy me and that sort of stuff, or rock ground type rather, that was going to get in the way, but again, nothing too strange. Next is, I think, Karen, and here again, she's got an Umbreon, she's got a Houndoom. Again, I'm worrying mostly for a flamethrower to come out, and Gengar shows up, so I think even in Generation 2, if not for the wing attack, I wouldn't have been able to get past this because Gengar would have stopped me. Because if I just had the normal moves, which is mostly just slash and like that's about it, as attacking moves for Scyther, we wouldn't have gotten past. But thanks to wing attack, we get through that. And Lance, again, he's the same Lance you pretty much, I mean, with minor changes, of course, that you pretty much take on in Generation 1. So it's pretty smooth sailing because we are so much over leveled. And I feel like this would have been a lot harder if we were around the same level as the Pokemon we were taking on. So if we just put ourselves at like level 50 or 60, you know, it'd been a lot harder. But this Generation 2 was pretty much easy. So next was Generation 3. So, oh boy, Generation 3 is where it gets really interesting. So first up is Sydney. Now, he is not that big of an issue, but what comes after him is where the problems start arising for me, because I ended up actually losing a few times here. Like, this is actually where it got difficult. So Gen 1 and Gen 2, not that hard, but coming up into Generation 3, that's where things were getting a little bit rougher for Scyther. Again, keep in mind, this is just a random bug type. I mean, it's a cool Pokemon, but when it's in Scizor, you know, it evolves into Scizor, it's way more useful. For example, here against Phoebe, it was difficult, like really difficult initially. See, Dusclops got me cursed and I essentially just ended up losing. I couldn't really do much to it. I just ended up getting destroyed, but I kind of like switched out a few items on Scyther, just made a few adjustments to it before going into battle, and we somewhat were able to get into a better position and actually get through the battle. So yeah, was initially really hard. We actually ended up losing against her, I think, once because of, again, Dusclops, but beyond that, the Bonnettes and stuff in our team weren't really that big of a problem. But again, it was the initial try that was a bit of an issue. Then after that, we had to take on Glacia. Now, Glacia was kind of easy, okay? Again, we just went for wing attack through most of our team. I think we swords danced once or twice throughout this one, because I was a little bit worried that maybe they were gonna pull out like an, you know, like an ice type move randomly, like an ice beam or something that might take me out. Like they did have hail, as you may have noticed, but I was really worried for potentially a ice beam or something like that taking me out. But again, Glacia was not that big of a problem. Here's where the big problem comes though. Now we ended up losing, I think 5 or so times against Drake, and you'll notice why. I mean, man, was it difficult. I had to go for so many swords dances, just waiting, trying to survive against his specifically little Shelgon here, just waiting for it, because afterwards is where the problem came in. It was Flygon, and I needed those swords dances to take out Flygon, because it was going to use, like, I can't remember, like, some move that just took me out. I can't remember which one it was when I kept losing, but it was some, I think, potentially rock-type move, ground-type move, something like that. But then I ended up getting lucky because, you know, like, just Earthquake in a few of the battles just didn't really matter because I was floating, so, you know, it was kind of lucky. But here we have one of my most fun battles, and that's against Champion Steven. So first is his Skarmory. I ended up losing against him, I think, twice when trying to do this, and I'm gonna be honest, like, his Skarmory scared me at first, but once I was able to, like, get through it, and the Clay Doll, that was pretty smooth sailing. But you may notice here towards the end, this gets insane. So I am up against a Aggron, and I'm just like, okay, I can do this, you know, I'll go for a Pursuit. I end up getting paralyzed, and I'm super worried because he's using Thunder against me, and I'm getting low on HP, and he goes for a straight up full restore. At this point, I'm just like, okay, I can do this. His last Pokemon shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? Well, I forgot it's a Metagross, and look at my HP. It's 1 HP. I need to outspeed here. Luckily, he goes for Earthquake, but that doesn't affect me because I'm levitating, boys, and we actually end up winning. And it was straight up so freaking close on this one, like super close, but we got Gen 3 done and dusted. So, Generation 4 was next, and first up was a Aron, if you get the reference. But yeah, so first up was Aron, or Aaron, whatever you want to call him. A Aron is my opinion, but he was not that difficult. Okay, this man was pretty straightforward, pretty smooth sailing, not that much of a difficulty, to be honest. Like, I expected it to be way more difficult than it ended up being, but it was pretty straightforward. His team was pretty much just taken out by my wing attacks, and I was mostly worried, honestly, in all of this about Cynthia. Like, that's where I had most of my fear, because I remember Cynthia back in the day, right? Maybe not Generation, like, you know, 4's Diamond and Pearl Cynthia, but definitely Platinum, you know, like, scares me. Like, that remembrance is just not fun. So I was a little bit worried, right? I was a little bit worried about that, but for the most part, it was pretty straightforward with Aaron. And next was Bertha, and here is a little bit of an issue. I ended up getting stuck in this, like, sandstorm, but for the most part, wing attack is really just a savior of everything. And literally just comment hashtag wing attack, because that's the only thing that saved Scyther in all of this. But however, this battle, though, was a little bit different though. In this case, I was worried because of the fire type moves that was going to be pulled on me, because like straight up you could see that I was losing health, right? I was not in a good position, and you know, Flint, I mean, oh man, like I got really lucky that he just didn't have like anything else that was gonna just, you know, outspeed me with like a fire type move, and that's where my luckiness kind of came through. Now Steelix was a problem though, and that Fire Fang, I was really worried. Like I was at this point worried, like, okay, I'm gonna lose this, there's no way. But luckily though, I didn't, and we made it through all the way until we got to this point. So Lucian, okay, first try, I actually failed. Second try, we got through, but man, did I worry on this battle as well. Because again, like, he can just catch you off guard a little bit, right? And I made a few mistakes in the moves I pressed. That's mostly what got me kind of destroyed in my first attempt against him, because I kept pressing the wrong moves, and I ended up getting myself destroyed, which is really strange, because you only really have, like, wing attack to, you know, deal with. So that's the only thing that kind of got me a little bit in trouble. But then we had Cynthia, and I'm gonna be honest, I really thought I was gonna lose this one. I thought, it's Cynthia. There's no way I can get through Cynthia easily. Like, it's just impossible, right? She's Cynthia, for crying out loud. But no, we take out the Spiritomb pretty solidly. Melodic is a one-shot straight through. Then we got Gastrodon, which again, also a one-shot. We just one-shot majority of our team. Now Garchomp, I was worried about, but again, a one-shot. And finishing it all off with that Lucario, again, a one-shot. A KO is, actually no, I wasn't the final one. Roserade, totally forgot about Roserade there for a minute. But yeah, Roserade, we finished it off in Gen 4 with smooth sailing as well. And so we made it to Generation 5 and their Elite 4, and honestly this was a struggle. First up was Chantel, and I'll be honest with you, she was difficult. I lost several times. Her Cofagrigus kept making it really difficult for me as I was trying to set up, and I kept getting Mummy onto me, and it was honestly kind of painful. Drifblim made my life a little bit of a problem as well for a bit, and honestly it was a really trial and error type of matchup. I had to switch out, I think, a few items that I was like the held item on my Scyther to actually defeat her, but I did end up losing quite a few times. Next was Marshall, and Marshall, wow, he was also difficult. I'm telling you right now, this is where it got really hard. And with Marshall, there was one specific Pokemon that really made my life miserable. Now, it wasn't Breloom. Breloom was just a setup Pokemon for me. I decided to just set up on it, but this is a Pokemon that made my life a living hell. That was Sock. See, Sock, every time I was trying to take it out, just kept having that freaking sturdy, and he rezzed it or healed it up with full restore. But luckily here I was faster, and he kept going for full restore there, or he went for a full restore, and that sort of saved me. But the first few times around, a few attempts or so, he ended up just destroying me with fighting type moves, and it was really difficult. But Marshall was finally taken out, though I will tell you the battle against him was hard. Now next we had, I think, Grimsley, right? So Grimsley was probably the easiest one out of all the Generation 5 ones. I think I would probably say Marshall was one of the hardest ones, probably the second hardest one to take out of all these with just Scyther, right? I think Chantel was the third most difficult, and the most difficult one, hands down, had to be the one after Grimsley, right? And you know what's coming up next. It was so hard, but Grimsley, in all honesty, was kind of okay. We ended up not losing a single time against him, though we did have a pretty difficult battle there, but we didn't end up actually losing against him though, which is why it makes him fall as difficult in my mind. But where we ended up having a trouble was Caitlyn, okay? So her Masharna kept making me fall asleep and then using Dream Eater. That's all she kept doing. Dream Eater, or make you fall asleep, Dream Eater. Make you fall asleep, Dream Eater. Or Hypnosis, Dream Eater. Hypnosis, Dream Eater. That's what she kept going for until I just kind of, you know, had to do so many attempts that it actually ended up working and getting through, right? I actually managed to fight through her freaking Masharna after a while. But initially, I'm telling you right now, it wasn't that easy. It was honestly sort of difficult, and Metagross almost destroyed me at the end there, you know, with just one last move. Luckily though, we get the critical, we get the KO onto her last Pokemon, and we pretty much defeat her. And yeah, that's what takes us all the way to the champion. And I'm telling you, like, Generation 5 was the third most difficult out of all these ones to do, and well, you know, here we didn't have much trouble. I think the champion was probably one of the easiest things to take on, in all honesty, because, well, he didn't really have much to offer. See, Alder, in my opinion, was pretty much the easiest one out of all of them to take out. I mean, his Volcarona was pretty cool to see because it's one of my favorite Pokemon, but in all honesty, it was pretty easy because his team just didn't have much to offer. I mean, sure, they had a bunch of bug types and stuff like that. You know, we had that Draudigon at the end there, but it just just wasn't enough to stop me and stop my Scyther, which is why we ended up winning and defeating him and taking home the championship for Generation 5. And so next was Generation 6, and honestly the first Elite Four was the most difficult one, which was Vikstrom. I'll be honest, like, he was the most difficult one to take on, because most of the other ones were pretty smooth sailing as well, and I think I'm overusing that word way too often here, but my point is basically this. Honestly, Vikstrom was the most difficult one. I had a hard time against his, like, promo pass, because I kept being hit by its freaking moves, and it kept taking my HP down, and I actually wouldn't have been able to defeat it if not for the fact that I actually had to use my first time use a hyper potion, and this was like the first time I actually had healed throughout pretty much all of this. I actually decided, like, you know what, I think it's time to start using that, and I think eventually here, you know, after struggling against him, I kind of decided, okay, let me look into my items and see if I have, like, you know, a leftover or something I put on there. Now, Malva was pretty straightforward. Of course, I was worried about her fire-type Pokemon. Sorry about the background noise, but I was worried about the fire-type Pokemon because, again, it is a Scyther I'm using at the end of the day, so, of course, it would be a big part of my worry, you know, seeing the fact that, well, you know, bug types ain't really best friends with fire types, so to say. But again, she ended up being not that big of a problem either. Pretty straightforward of a battle, to be honest. Yeah, we took her on pretty easily. Next was Drasna, and Drasna, well, she was kind of creepy, to be honest. I was a little bit worried about her because I was like, okay, well, you know, what's her deal? What's she gonna do, right? And she pulls off a Dragalge first, which I decide to, you know what, let them just attack us a few times. I can go for a few Swords Dances. I decided just Swords Dance all I could here, you know, just kind of max it out so I can just go straight in for my moves. Now, Poison Dart came in here, and I was poisoned, and again, I could have made this far more difficult for myself by simply just, you know, continuing with the poison, you know, on there, and sort of what I ended up doing for a bit. And luckily, Leftovers was on my Pokemon at this point, because I decided, hey, I think Leftovers would be useful to have. And yeah, Drasna, again, not that difficult either. We took her down pretty solidly. But next, however, we had ourselves Seabold, and okay, so I initially thought this battle was going to be difficult, but when I kind of considered it for a moment, I realized, well, will it really be? I mean, we've got a few moves that should be useful here, in all fairness. We did end up taking a bit of damage, but again, mostly just setting up with that Swords Dance was all we needed to do, and we were pretty much set up for a pretty much sweep of his team, which is what I sort of ended up doing here, like, for the most part. Now, we did have a little problem here with Berkeley, and it's mostly because of, you know, it coming through with, I think, a Rock Slide, which was a problem to deal with. But after we got rid of it, most of the rest of his team was, again, not that difficult to get rid of, and that's what we ended up doing. So he was pretty much done and dusted. And finishing it all off, Diantha was, of course, the champion we took on, and again, same setup. Now, thing though is here, I was kind of worried because this whole Lucha, man, like, it was going for like Swords Dance as well. I was like, oh boy, this could go bad. But no, we just go for the wing attack once more, and I think we also use X-Scissor here as well a few times in terms of moves. But for the most part, she wasn't that difficult. I think the most hard one, as I mentioned, was probably Vikstrom, because of the fact that he kept using, I think it was like the promo pass, like specifically taking me out. I just couldn't do enough damage, you know, to kind of correlate his damage, because I will just end up getting destroyed, which is why I'm telling you right now, this isn't doable if you don't have like full restores or some sort of heals during battle. And Generation 7, this is where my life became miserable, I'll be honest. So Hala was up first, and he was a, you know, one try, one win, instant sort of victory right now. Again, one thing I should point out here is this wasn't my, like, first try on this Elite Four, so I was actually doing, like, the, you know, defending my title type of deal. So it was, I think, slightly harder than it normally is, but that may explain why I had some struggles, to be honest here. But I'm telling you right now, Hala was pretty straightforward, not that difficult to defeat, and we got him easy. However, after Hala is where things get a little bit annoying. So Kahili was impossible. I could not defeat her. Her Skarmory would most likely just one-tap me at the first try. Like, it would just take me out straight away, and I had to use full restores. I had to go for heals, or else I couldn't win it here. Like, up until this point, up until Generation 6. In Generation 6 battles, I used one full restore or one heal. In this regard, I had to use several full restores, because you can't get through them. And, like, Healy was difficult, but she wasn't even the most difficult one out of all these, because the most difficult one is afterwards. But after getting through her Skarmory, the rest of her team is pretty easy. But that's the thing, the Skarmory was the problem, because it would take me out so hard in terms of HP in the beginning that I couldn't do anything once I, got to the rest of her team. But yeah, the problem is here. So yeah, this battle was impossible. See, her Relicanth kept, or Relicanth, whatever you want to call it, right, kept going for like head bash, head smash, whatever the move is called, and essentially one-tapping me. So I had to go and give my Pokemon some, like, I can't remember what sort of item I gave it, maybe Eviolite, something like that, I think. Something like that is what I gave it, though, to just increase its, like, special defense and whatnot, so I could actually, and its defense, so I could just take a few hits, right? Because that's the problem here. I had to consistently go for several full restores until I got rid of her Golem, because if I got past the Relicanth, that didn't matter, because Golem would take me out with a bunch of, like, ground type, rock type, whatever you want to call them, moves, or mostly rock type moves, right? It would just take me out with a bunch of rock type moves, and Lycanroc was a worry because she starts off her Lycanroc with a Z move, right? And it instantly destroyed me as well. So again, I had to literally just work my way through her team in a very, very strange manner, but that's the way we got rid of her, though. So finally, we made it until the last Elite Four, and here, oh, rain is starting to fall right now. Interesting. While I'm recording this. So in this regard, it was pretty straightforward. Her Sableye was easy, and she was probably like the second easiest one out of them all. Like Hala was easy, but then the most difficult ones were probably like Olivia and Kahili were just insanely difficult. I couldn't have done it without the heals. Like if I didn't have heals, it was impossible. That's the thing. Can you beat these guys with just a Scyther? Yes. If you heal, yes you can. Without heals, impossible. Like, it actually is genuinely impossible, because there's no sort of move you can give or anything you can do with the Pokemon. No matter what you do, it's impossible, because there's nothing you can do to change the sort of outcome you get at the end here. But honestly, this team was pretty straightforward. Palossand didn't really do much. It meant for the Z move almost got me there, but since I was so used to using full restores at this point, I just decided I'm gonna just keep using full restores because I'm not dealing with this. I was so tired at this point. It was so late when I recorded it, so I was like, you know what, it is what it is. And since we're doing we're already the champion, we're doing a title defense against Hal here, I wasn't that worried. I knew that his team just in general wasn't that strong, at least not in the games. I mean, a little bit of damage here from Condominable or whatever, but majority part, pretty easy. Again, if we had done this without full restores, I don't think I would have been able to defeat him. But at this point, I'd given up on the idea of not using items, so it made my life so much easier just simply slapping out a bunch of full restores and getting through his team without any major, hiccups or issues. At this point, it was a bit worrisome because I was only 2 HP left. But yeah, I just healed up with a full restore and then took out the rest of his team pretty easily, which was only one thing left at this point, which was Komala. And yeah, we defeated the last one. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. We sort of did it. Now, here's the thing. Can you beat all the Elite Four with just a Scyther? Well, no, actually not. Like, yes, you can. I sort of did it, but in reality, you really can't, because you can't do it in Red and Blue, if we count that Elite Four, which is the same one from Pokemon Yellow. You can't because you have no moves that can take out Agatha. And then as we go through, if you were doing it with heals, then yes, you can always do it. If you've got potions and like hyper potions and full restores, you can do it. But without any of that, it's actually impossible. So, can you beat it? Yes, but also no. It's a yes and no answers. So there it is. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry for it being really weird. I'm trying something different here, trying to see how this works. If you guys want to see a video like this in the future, but without me talking and just the gameplay and it being like an hour-long video, if you want to see that version, like an hour-long video, let me know. I could upload it to this channel or to my second channel, Astra Pokey, which by the way, you guys should, just check out, subscribe to it. We really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.